I am Megan Kopman.
I'm Jillian Adler.
We run a 5-agent team in Boston, in the downtown Boston market. We are going to celebrate our 7-year anniversary at Compass this September. So we joined, I think, right on the 1-year anniversary of Compass starting in Boston.
We have been a team we are coming up on 12 years. And in those 12 years together, we have done quite a lot of listing presentations. So we thought we would take what we use and what we've found success with and share it with you all.
So we recently restructured listing presentations and the way we present data to sellers. The reason we did that is we realized that we were walking into listings and sellers were pressuring us right off the bat for us to give them our number. So we hadn't established any sort of rapport with them at the beginning. They wanted to go straight to the number, and we would allow that. We would go straight to the number, and then we would spend the rest of the listing presentation talking about how we got to that number. And what we realized was at least 80% of sellers don't love the number that you throw out. Every seller is going to think their house is worth more than maybe what the math and the data and the market says. So the second you've thrown that number out, you spend the rest of the listing pitch trying to earn the attention of that seller back. So we wanted to figure out a way to flip it, to hold the seller's attention and to have them actually focus on the data that we had to present. So we decided to load, we've always been data people, so we decided to load as much data as we could and to synthesize it down in a way that it made sense for our sellers. So our goal today, if we do this right, is to show you guys how to synthesize large chunks of information into manageable data points so that you can clearly convey appropriate pricing recommendations to your sellers. And then we'll probably spend most of our time on managing unrealistic seller expectations, because even once you've done that drill where you spend 45 minutes walking a seller through macro market statistics, micro market statistics, all the way down to talking to them about what their neighbor's house sold for, they may still look at you at the end of that presentation and say, I hear you, but I really had this price in mind that I wanted to get. And can we just try that first before we actually look at your approach, our approach being the math, the data, and the market?
So when we walk into a listing presentation, I think it's a really good way to start off by warning the seller that we don't want to know what you think your house is worth, and we don't want you to tell us the bottom line of your price range. What that does is it puts us in a place where we are able to discuss all of the data with the seller prior to them shooting a number at us and us saying, no, no, no. It makes it more conversational. It makes it less argumentative, less defensive. And it's a good way to keep them, listening to you go through all of this data and get to a point where they really are understanding why you are suggesting the list price you are. So today we will walk through our pricing process. For us, pricing is consistently a science. It does not need to be an emotional thing, and it is for sellers. But when you can show it to them in math and in data, it really does change their opinion. And then the second role is our agent role in the process, and how if we are doing everything we are supposed to be doing right and the property is not selling, it is simply a function of price. And we feel that that is a really important part of this process.
The other thing we like to use data for is we like to know our own data. I think it's important to know your numbers as an agent, because I think a lot of times sellers will have multiple listing presentations and they hear a lot of the same type of information, and they pick the listing agent based on maybe someone that knows that listing agent, or just the person that they had the best connection with who may not be the right listing agent for that property. So we'll show them our data. I never like to walk into a listing presentation and say, oh, you're probably interviewing, Stephen Cohen and this person, this other person. I don't like to talk directly about other agents. We have really good, solid agents in our market. So we use this data to distinguish ourselves from the other agents as a whole. And we'll show you how we collect that data, which is harder and easier in other markets. Once we've done that, once we've walked the seller through the data process and the science pricing, and our role in the process, that's where we typically get to the last remaining objection, which is, I understand your price. It makes sense to me. I understand how you walked me through it, but can we just try it my way? And how to deal with that type of objection, because it comes up, for us at least, a shocking amount of time.
So when we talk about our pricing process, we look at it in 3 different ways and come to 3 different price points that are all in a very, very tight range. So we start at a macro level, which is the tone of the overall market. Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? And it's very interesting because we as agents know what's happening in our markets, being boots on the ground. But it's very interesting, particularly in the last 12 months or so, it feels that the media is a bit behind us. They were still saying the market was great last spring when we were really starting to feel that the market was changing. So it's a really good way to, set their expectations and also ask them, what do you think it is? And give them a real overview of what we are experiencing today on a high level. Then we get into the market specific. So this is our sort of first big data point that we're able to put in front of our sellers. So this is a 22-year appreciation chart for the city of Boston based on average sale price. So this is 22 years. And what we do with this is, we are seeing basically with some outliers, the average appreciation for Boston is 5% year over year. So if our client bought something 2 years ago in 2021 for $2 million, and it's 2 years later, and we're looking at a 5% year over year appreciation, then we can tell them based on this market specific data, we are looking at a $2.1 million sale price, 5% each year. And from here, we also go into dollar per square foot, whatever we feel is most relevant. And we can also start to break it down by neighborhood.
So you're sort of constantly orienting the seller back to the market. So they're asking themselves the questions on their own, and they hear, okay, if I bought a place, for $2 million and I've got 5% year over year appreciation, so I should be able to sell for roughly 2.2. And they may have had a number in their head that was much higher than that, but hopefully they're saying to themselves, well, the whole market has appreciated, so why am I different than that? And typically you sort of see the wheels turning, and the next question is almost always very predictable. Well, I see your 5% year over year appreciation, but my neighbor just sold for this number, and it's a really good number, and it's way higher than 5% year over year appreciation, and my house is just like my neighbor's house. So I think that's probably more in line where we should be on the pricing. A nice way to look at this is, because typically they always pick the outlier. There's always that one property, and they find it and they pick it. And you show them this micro market graph of where most of the properties in their price point and caliber of property have sold. So you get this nice little grouping of dots where most things have traded. And then you show them where the outlier is. In this chart, the outlier is up at number 2. This is an actual property that we recently had to price. So the outlier was at number 2. So this is where you can set yourself apart on market knowledge as well. And it's nice for them to see this. So they see, okay, everyone's down below, but I think I should be up top. So instead of saying to them, you're out of the range of where your comps are, you just show it to them. Showing for us has been much better than telling. People seem to want to see it on a piece of paper. The other thing we can do here is we can dig into this comp, and we can say, you're right. You are exactly like your neighbor. You guys renovated at the same time. In Boston, all these houses are row houses, and they're all the same, and they're all the same size, and they're set up the same. So if one person renovated at almost exactly the same time, the pricing is going to be really similar. And we say to them, did you see your neighbor's house? Oh, yeah, we're good friends with our neighbors for sure. Was there anything different about your neighbor's house that stood out? Well, they had an elevator, and we really felt like it ate into the floor plan, and they had garage parking, but it was, kind of hard to get into. Everyone has a story. And we say, okay, So your house and your neighbor's house are the same, but the elevator adds 200,000 in value and the garage parking adds 300,000 in value. So if we take your neighbor's price and we just deduct out the things that are different, think about it as options on a car. You don't have heated seats in your house, they do. You may have other options that they don't have. We're just stacking up numbers here. So you're right, you are like your neighbor minus $500,000, which is where we've plotted you on our chart. The other thing we do is we set up a collection for them. Again, we're showing, we're not telling. It also helps us use Compass tools, which are great. And I think it sets you apart from other listing agents as well. So we go in and we show them that we've set up a collection, and you'll see on this particular collection, and it may be different in every market. What you're trying to show may or may not work. For us right now, our market is trading below asking on most things. That was not the case 9 or 12 months ago. We are getting multiple offers, but properties are still trading. Let's call it a $1.6 million property is going to trade at 165, 1625, maybe at asking or a hair under asking. The problem that you come up against is they say, well, when my neighbor went on the market, they had 4 offers. So what they're assuming is it went well over asking, because 9 months ago, 4 offers in our market meant $100,000 to $200,000 over asking. But what you're showing them is, yep, they had multiple offers, but they actually traded below asking. And the other thing we've had, Jillian mentioned this for a minute, that we've had to deal with is everything they're seeing out in the marketplace is lagging actual data. So the more that you can present real-time data to them is helpful. So that on that last screen, I had that one property that was an outlier. I had a case not recently, I would call it 9 months ago, where I listed something at $2.5 million. I had 4 offers. 3 of them were at 2.6. One of them was at 2.95. The second that property closed, I saw a bunch of agents list properties at that high end of that range at 2.95. It was an absolute outlier. We spend time picking up the phone and calling other agents that have properties under agreement, so it's not public with the under agreement prices. And we ask them, and they tell us. Typically, they won't tell us the exact number, but it's really simple. Were you over ask? Were you under ask? They'll tell you we were under ask by a little bit, but not by a lot. Well, now you have real-time data. So if you're trying to price something and your seller's saying to you, hey, it went in 4 offers, we got to jack up our price by 5% because things are really starting to move. The answer is it went in 4 offers, but from a comp perspective, we actually need to stick very tight to the historical comps right now because the actual pricing isn't having any movement yet.
So that brings us into the agent's role in the process. So we walk everybody through all of these numbers, but as brokers, it is our job to control every single variable that we have control over in the process. So for us, preparation and staging is huge. The 2 on the left is actually a property that we prepped and staged ourselves. So we did new cabinetry, new hardware, new furniture. And we really want to make sure that everything presents as well as possible. At Compass, we have so many options with Compass Concierge, amazing marketing teams, and we have a real ability to produce excellent collateral that places these properties everywhere. And the reason that that is so important is because we need to control all of these variables, because if it does not sell, we know it is solely a function of the price. So when we tell our clients, you're going to be placed everywhere you need to be placed, we're going to show you the online traffic, it's going to be presented perfectly. There's not a single other thing that we can do on our end other than adjust the price. It makes it a lot easier to have that conversation. And an important note on that one as well is, we had a similar situation where a year ago, I had a single family that I had listed for 3.9. The exact same single family listed next door was at 4.2, and it sat there for 118 days. I actually went on at 3.9 and ended up getting 4.1, and that $4.2 million property actually never sold. So, pricing, even if these are big numbers, of course, but pricing appropriately means less days on market and better ratio on list price for sale price. So this is another really important part of our listing presentation and a way we pitch ourselves. Again, we are very, very big on show, not tell. I am never going to walk into a listing and say, I am the best person for this job because of X, Y, and Z. I think it's important to show our history as listing brokers and say, this is what it is. So we were able to calculate our average days on market in Boston versus the average listing. And we actually have 55% fewer days on market than the average listing in Boston. What that tells a seller is you are going to bother me less. I am not going to have to prep for open houses, get my kids out of the house, wake up kids during nap time for showings. And that is really meaningful for most sellers. And then the second point that we have here is our average list price versus sale price ratio. So in the city of Boston, we sell at 98% of the list price, where the average sale price is 92% of the list price. So even if our numbers are slightly disappointing to them, we can say, you know, we are going to be roughly within 2% of this price if we are priced appropriately. And if you want to list it with somebody else, of course, that is your choice, but they are likely part of this 92% category where you'll ultimately end up price dropping it over time. We are not in the business of listing houses. We are in the business of selling houses. And this is an easy way to show that.
One metric that's not on this chart that came out of the chat discussion this morning, which we found really interesting, a guy in New York raised it, was, have you tried to look at the number of price changes you do versus other agents? I think that would be a really interesting metric for sellers to see. We haven't figured out, we haven't spent any time with it yet, but we haven't figured out how to pull that out of our MLS data. And in different places, it's harder to pull certain data out. I know in New York, it's really difficult. I don't think they have an organized MLS. We have a pretty good MLS here in Boston, so we're able to cull out some of these numbers fairly easily. But that's probably one that we would add to our slide deck and add to our listing presentation as well. So we do all that, and we use all the math and all the science and all the numbers, and we walk the seller right up to the price. And this is the point where we say to them, all the math that we have now shown you leads us to this being the most successful list number. And we show them their list number. And they say, okay, I hear you. They're not immediately combative like they used to be. They don't spend all their time trying to unconvince us of the list price. At this point, they typically understand that the list price we've recommended is probably the right list price. But we get a handful of sellers, because they're sellers, that say, can we just try it my way anyway? Even if just for a little bit, because they still have it in their head that their neighbor got X number and they should be able to too. We deal with this a couple of different ways. One way, which Compass is super helpful on, are private exclusives and coming soons. So what we say to our sellers, and most of our sellers are repeat business, 90% or 95% of our business is referral business. We've never bought leads. We're very lucky. We're in a small, tight market. We have really good clients that refer us out a lot. We do stay in close contact with our sphere of influence, but it is going to be very rare where we look at someone and say, we're so far apart on where we want to list this property that we don't think it's a good idea for us to list this property. If somebody asks us for an extreme discount, that's when we'll stop and say, you know, thank you, but we're not discount brokers. Compass is a luxury brand. It's a high level of service, and that's why we're charging this. But so we have the ability to say, okay, we'll put your house on a private exclusive. We'll put it on a coming soon. That way, the whole world is not going to see this pricing. We're not going to establish pricing history in MLS that's going to be unfavorable, because we have a pretty good idea that we're going to go through a price drop. So we'll allow sellers to do that. What we do during that period is we do market directly to agents. We do some social media marketing. And we get as many agents in as we can, and we ask them for really specific feedback. Most agents will do that for us because we do it for them. Our environment in Boston is really cooperative, even as among firms. There's 20 or 30 of us that sell in our super core neighborhood, and we do try to help each other out in terms of giving feedback that's helpful, as opposed to just doing a showing and have it, you know, vaporize in the ether. So we'll get some feedback and we'll show that to the sellers on what the discussion is around our current pricing. Hopefully that helps. The other thing we do, which is our new favorite thing to do, is we will do something we've called a pre-market broker pricing party. So we say to the seller, you've heard our price, you know what our price is. Do you want to hear from 20 or 30 other top producing agents in your sub-market on what they think the pricing should be? And they're like, yeah, of course. Like, they don't want to interview 20 agents, but that's data they would love to have. So we send out an email to 30 people, all people we do deals with all the time. And we say, hey, we've got a really great property coming to market. Do you want to see it before anybody else gets to see it? We're also going to do a closest to the whole gift card giveaway, $200 or $300 gift card, and have a nice lunch. We find we get, if we invite 30 people, we get 22, 24 of them, mostly because all these people have buyers and they want to see the inventory before it's coming to market. I don't know what kind of markets everyone on this call is in, but like Boston is unbelievably tight. We all know when there's something coming and we all get out to see it. So to have a jump on some inventory is kind of a gift. So they do us a favor back. They show up, they write their name on a piece of paper, they write their price, and they drop it in a hat. Afterwards, we put it in a spreadsheet for our seller. Most of these sellers in our neighborhoods know these brokers by name. They see their flyers, they see them selling other things. So they look at it, and the first thing they do is go, wow, everyone is really closely in the same place. And then you see somebody say, well, you got this one person at 1,375. Like, I was thinking that more than the 1,289 that you had suggested. So you've got $100,000 spread, but you're able to reorient them pretty easily when you look at it and you say, okay, the core of these brokers are all within $10,000 of each other. And usually your outlier is your outlier for a reason. And you can distinguish that. So that really helps the seller. So now they're not just hearing from you, they're hearing from 20 other top agents, and they're hearing hard numbers. And during that process, you're standing in a room with 20 of the other agents who price things and sell things in your market. So if there was a bidding war the weekend before on a house that, Catherine B, who's standing in the room, and you say, Catherine, I heard you had 4 offers. And she's like, yeah, I did. She's like, I was amazed it didn't go over asking. Like, nobody will share the actual number. She's like, but yeah, it's not like it used to be. We're not going 100 over. She's like, we're really, we're barely hitting asking even with 4 offers right now. So now you know that when your seller says to you, well, the one around the corner got 4 offers, you have the ability to say, and it did not go over ask. So we need to be tight on our pricing and not assume that there are things happening in the market that aren't actually happening. If all that doesn't work and your seller says, you know what, I want this, I want to go with this high number, I think we can get it for a variety of reasons, we just pre-negotiate a price drop. We say to them, listen, it's your house, you're going to price it. Obviously, you've heard our recommendation. You've heard the recommendation of 20 other agents. It's your house, you get to price it. But we're going to try it your way for 10 days or 2 open houses. And then we're going to drop to this price without even having a conversation about it. And we're going to get your house sold for 98% of that. And we already know that we have a list of agents who just walked through here, and 6 of them want to show your house already. So that tends to be pretty effective at the end of the day. The pre-market broker pricing party, it's just a massive festival of information that doesn't exist anywhere else in the market. It does a really good job as distinguishing you as the true controller of information in your market.
And the pre-negotiated price drop really makes it so, nobody wants to go to their sellers and say, hey, I really need this. So we spend a lot of upfront time on data, marketing, and our listing plan. And that way, when you know what you want to price drop to, you're not asking them for it 3 weeks in. It's not even a conversation. It's already in your listing. So you avoid those difficult conversations. And most of all, you really manage expectations. And that's about it for us.
We are happy to share any and all of this. We already got some emails from some people this morning. We're happy to send the slide deck. we're happy to get on the phone with people. We've already done it with a couple of people in different markets. Obviously, there's some different rules in different markets. So on that pre-market broker pricing party, we've heard from some people that they can't do that with agents outside of Compass, or they can't do it if it's a private exclusive. Our market is completely wide open. We're told we're told it's the Wild West here, and we've been doing it, but be sure to check in on those things. But anybody that wants any of this, we sort of have preloaded spreadsheets, so you can load your own data into it and have the spreadsheet calculate everything you need calculated. Yep. We are happy to do that. We always love meeting other agents. One of the best things about being at Compass for us is the knowledge sharing, and especially in Chirag's group, the number of people that we've met who have really upped our game and told us things that have allowed us to be much better agents. We have a big appreciation for, so we're happy to return the favor to anybody who wants to chat.
And we are happy to answer anyone's questions. Alex, can you figure this out?
Sorry, we need our technology wizard back.
This
is also the spreadsheet master.
Yes.
Show your face. Show your face. This is our director of operations.
When you see Alex, it's this.
Yeah. If you need anything from us, be sure to email Alex. Chat.
Go to the chat bar.
Stop share.
And then the chat bar.
Okay.
So,
let's see what we've got.
What do you?
Yep. So a couple of people want the slide deck and the spreadsheet. We can also send it in the Excel format so that you have all the formulas in there. Social media during private exclusive. In our market, we can do it. You have to check. It's different in every market. The other thing that's hard and different in every market is, like, for instance, in New York, it's really hard to pull statistics in New York. I don't think you have an MLS, but my understanding is, and we're sort of pushing this on a national level with Compass, my understanding is that your sales manager can pull certain statistics that would be really helpful for your listing presentations, like the things that are specific to you in terms of, list to ask ratio on the listings that you sell. Yeah. So we've sort of been working with them internally here to see if sales managers can start pulling some more specific statistics for people.
Yeah. And Mary, your question is really good. What do you price the property during the private exclusive? So that's really, to me, one of the most beneficial. I mean, we have so many beneficial tools at Compass, but the private exclusive is really a beautiful thing, because if we list even at a crazy number, no one's going to see it. And then, if we do have people, I am pretty good about letting people fly a little bit, not totally crazy, but if they want to do 50, 75 more than I thought they should, we can really do that there. And what's really helpful is, when we send a showing recap at the end of the day, after we've done those showings, and everyone says, love this house, it's great light, good parking, great location, but it just feels too expensive. It's sort of like the broker party where you're giving that feedback and it's not coming directly from you. Your house is not worth this. It is coming directly from the buyer and the buyer's broker.
Yeah, that private exclusive period is typically where we will try out that seller's, can we try my price and see what we get during that time period, because we don't want to expose it to the market as a whole.
Yeah. If you guys can email us, we will type in the chat right now, our team email. And if you email us, Alex here will get you everything you need.
Yeah, we'll send you the deck and the spreadsheets. We do typically send the data presentation. So when we meet with sellers, we actually go meet with them in person. Yes. We don't typically do Zoom here. Our market's a very in-person market. So we'll go and we'll actually do the presentation. And then afterwards, we'll send them a link with the data presentation, not the raw data, but with the data presentation and the graphs, along with our listing presentation.
Yeah. Slide deck and
so we'll send all this stuff out afterwards. I'll send it to Chirag as well, but sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle. I don't know where to find the stuff, so we'll send it to you all directly as well.
Yeah, and I think, one of the points we made earlier, that if you're a new agent, you're breaking into a new market, these pricing parties are tremendously helpful. Having information that other people don't have is usually our strong suit. And we get that from picking up the phone and calling other brokers. So if you have a listing in a neighborhood that you may not do a whole lot of work in, and you go through MLS and you call those top 15, 20 people, first of all, they want to see your listing because they want to know what's coming, because they want that information. And second of all, when you do that for them, they're more happy to share with you, oh, we did have multiple offers, but it didn't go over asking, or we only had the one offer and it was sort of an outlier. And I think that that's really helpful if you're breaking into a new market, or if you're newer to being a broker. It's a nice way to break in.
So one question I saw, Robert Parrish in Menlo Park, do you get preemptive offers during that broker pricing party? We do every once in a while,
Yeah.
as long as the seller wants to. We'll sell a house right there. And some sellers really appreciate that. We have lots of sellers with young kids and dogs, and they don't want to have to deal with making their house perfect every single time. Most people in the city are crunched for space. So half the times we take some of their stuff out of the house that they'd like to be able to use. If we get an offer right at that pricing party and it's a good one, a lot of sellers will take that offer right then and there. We do like to let everybody know at the pricing party and say, hey, just so you guys know, it wasn't our intent. We did get an offer. So, if you want to get your people in here over the next 24 hours, we're absolutely going to allow for that. But I would say 50% of the time we get an offer out of that.
Yeah, not necessarily at the pricing party itself, but what comes from that. And, what comes from that, and based on the feedback we've received and our understanding of the private exclusive number, AKA the number the seller really, really wants that our data doesn't support, if we are able to get them that number, the sellers are elated, because we've already walked them through about 45 minutes worth of data points as to why their house wasn't worth that. So they feel, somebody has been outbid before, they've been looking for this exact kind of house for so long, and they don't want to compete, and they just will pay for it. So that's a good way to curb your seller's expectations as well. You're listing at the height of what they want, and if we can get the number, then awesome. Did I miss anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, what do you use to make the presentation? We use Compass's listing presentation. It is absolutely gorgeous. Our clients love it. We walk in, even a couple of weeks later, and we'll see it kind of hanging around their office. Their CMAs, a lot of these graphs, they're in our listing presentation, which we are, of course, happy to share.
Yeah, a lot of the graphs that you saw, we put into the listing presentation. Happy to send you the format so you can start with that and put your personal stuff in it.
Oh, and we we'll do printed if we're seeing them in person. We also have the flip book that we'll send them afterwards, because I'm seeing here printed or iPad. And somebody also asked, where do we do Boston? We are Boston proper, Boston's core neighborhoods, along with Brookline and Newton.
Back Bay, South End, Midtown Financial District.
Beacon Hills, Seaport.
We are city brokers.
Yes. Parking's tough, but it was a pleasure to meet you all. Feel free to email us with any questions.